It all started with what I thought was a harmless gesture, a simple introduction that would ease the tension between my professional and personal worlds. I was confident that introducing my wife, Amanda, to my boss, George, would not only create goodwill, but also demonstrate my commitment to transparency. Little did I know, this seemingly innocent act would spiral into the biggest catastrophe of my life. From the moment Amanda stepped into the office, the atmosphere shifted in ways I could never have anticipated. She greeted George with polite indifference, her smile barely masking the icy reserve she carried. Her body language screamed discomfort, and even though she tried to maintain civility, it was clear she didn't trust him. And then there was George, overly friendly, almost unnervingly so. His charm felt forced, his compliments too rehearsed, as if he were trying too hard to impress someone who clearly wasn't interested. Amanda's unease grew palpable, and I watched helplessly as the interaction turned awkward, then tense, and finally unbearable. It was like watching two opposing forces collide, Amanda's guarded demeanor against George's calculated friendliness. The air crackled with unspoken hostility, and by the time they exchanged pleasantries, I could feel the foundation of something precious beginning to crumble beneath my feet. As the days turned into weeks, my frustration with George grew into something far more toxic than I had anticipated. While I was buried under piles of spreadsheets, brainstorming sessions, and late-night research, George strutted around the office like a peacock, basking in the glory of work he had barely touched. Every idea that came to life was mine, crafted meticulously over countless hours, but it was George who stood at the forefront, reaping the rewards. He had a knack for twisting narratives, spinning tailies in meetings where he painted himself as the mastermind, while reducing me to nothing more than a glorified assistant. "Jim's great at execution," he'd say with a smirk, patting me on the back as if he were doing me a favor. But deep down, I knew what he was really saying: irreplaceable. The worst part? My colleagues started buying into his act. During one particularly grueling project presentation, George took full credit for an innovative strategy I had spent weeks developing. As he confidently explained my ideas to the team, I felt my blood boil. No one questioned him. They just nodded along, impressed by his eloquence. Meanwhile, I sat silently, clenching my fists under the table, feeling invisible. It wasn't just about recognition anymore, it was about respect. How could I continue pouring my soul into this job when my contributions were being erased before my eyes? Then came the day when I discovered something even more devastating. Hidden among casual conversations between George and upper management, I overheard him casually mention that all the heavy lifting was done by him alone. The audacity of his lies left me speechless. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but fear held me back. What if they didn't believe me? What if George managed to twist the truth again, making me look like the villain? The injustice weighed heavily on my chest, suffocating me. Each morning, dragging myself to the office felt like walking into a battlefield where the odds were stacked against me. And yet, I couldn't walk away, not yet. Not until I found a way to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The cracks in my marriage began to widen after that fateful day at the office. Amanda's demeanor changed almost overnight. She became distant, her once warm eyes now clouded with suspicion. At first, I dismissed it as stress. Her workload had been heavy lately, but then came the accusations. "George has been texting me," she said one evening, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. My stomach dropped. She showed me a string of innocuous messages, none overtly inappropriate, yet the undertones gnawed at her trust. "He's too familiar," she snapped, pacing the room like a caged animal. "And you were always defending him." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she think I was complicit in something so absurd? But Amanda wasn't finished. "You introduced us, Jim." You brought him into our lives. Each word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper with every accusation. I tried to reason with her, to explain that George was just being, well, George. But nothing I said mattered. She accused me of hiding something, of shielding him from scrutiny. The more I denied it, the more convinced she became. Our arguments grew fiercer, each exchange laced with venomous words we couldn't take back. One night, after hours of screaming and tears, she blurted out, "Maybe we need space." The air froze around us. Space? Was she serious? Before I could respond, she added, "I'm going to Philadelphia to see Mom." "Don't call me." Her decision felt like a death sentence. We weren't just taking a break, we were tearing ourselves apart. As she packed her bags the next morning, I watched helplessly, my chest aching with regret and fear. "This isn't what I wanted," I whispered, but she didn't look up. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt suffocating. Every corner reminded me of her, the scent of her perfume on the pillows, the echo of her laughter in the kitchen. And through it all, George's smug face lingered in my mind, taunting me. Had he planned this? Was this some sick game to ruin not only my career, but also my life? The success of the project should have been my moment of triumph, a culmination of sleepless nights and relentless dedication. Instead, it became a grotesque spectacle where George basked in glory while I faded into obscurity. The investors were ecstatic, calling our work revolutionary and praising George as a business genius. He stood at the center of attention, his smug grin radiating arrogance, as if every ounce of this achievement was solely his doing. Meanwhile, I sat quietly in the corner, clenching my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. It wasn't just that he took credit for everything, it was how effortlessly he did it, like stealing candy from a child. Every compliment directed at George felt like another nail in my coffin. "George is a predator," they said, "a visionary who knows exactly what the market needs." Predator? Visionary? The man couldn't even spell half the terms I used during development meetings. Yet there he was, shaking hands, accepting accolades, and throwing around buzzwords like he'd invented them. My colleagues, once friendly and collaborative, now treated me with thinly veiled disdain. Conversations that once flowed naturally turned awkward. Their eyes darted away when I spoke, as if my presence made them uncomfortable. They didn't see me as a contributor anymore, they saw me as an afterthought, a shadow trailing behind George's towering figure. What hurt most was realizing that no one cared about the truth. When I tried to interject during a casual office chat, pointing out subtle details about the project only someone deeply involved would know, they dismissed me with polite indifference. "Jim's great at execution," one of them echoed George's words, patting me on the shoulder like you'd comfort a defeated dog. That phrase haunted me execution, as if my role was merely mechanical, devoid of creativity or intellect. Every glance, every comment reinforced the growing chasm between us. George had become untouchable, a demigod in their eyes, while I was reduced to a footnote in the story of his rise to fame. And the more I watched him revel in the spotlight, the more my resentment festered, poisoning whatever shred of loyalty I still clung to. It was during a closed-door meeting that George delivered the final blow, one that shattered whatever fragile remnants of respect I had left for him. "Jim is just an executor," he declared with cold precision, his voice dripping with condescension. "He doesn't have the vision or leadership to represent this project." The words hit me like a freight train, leaving me breathless and seething with rage. My hands trembled under the table as I clenched them into fists, my nails digging into my palms. Every fiber of my being screamed to lash out, to confront him right then and there. But something held me back: fear. Fear of losing what little dignity I had left. Fear of tarnishing my reputation in front of colleagues who already doubted me. So I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced myself to sit still, pretending his words didn't cut deeper than any blade ever could. That night, I couldn't sleep. George's smug face haunted me, his voice echoing in my mind like a cruel mantra. I knew I couldn't stay at the company anymore. Staying would mean accepting my diminished role, allowing George to continue stealing my ideas and erasing my contributions. By morning, I had made up my mind I would quit. But quitting wasn't enough. I wanted to expose George for the manipulative fraud he was. I approached a few trusted coworkers, hoping to convince them to join me. George doesn't care about us, I pleaded. He takes credit for everything and leaves us holding the bag. If we leave together, we can take our talents elsewhere and thrive without him. But their responses were lukewarm at best. We can't risk it, Jim, one said nervously, glancing over his shoulder as if George might be listening through the walls. Another simply shook her head, avoiding eye contact. Their reluctance crushed me. They were too afraid to stand up to him, too entrenched in their own fears to see the bigger picture. As I walked away from those conversations, I felt more isolated than ever. It wasn't just George who had betrayed me, it was everyone else's silence that sealed my fate. Alone and furious, I drafted my resignation letter, each word burning with the weight of betrayal and despair. The day George fired me was nothing short of a public execution, a calculated move designed to humiliate and destroy me. As I stood in his office, my heart pounding like a war drum, he delivered the final blow with a smirk that made my blood boil. "You're done here, Jim," he said, his voice dripping with venom. But it wasn't just the termination. It was the lies he spread afterward that truly broke me. Within hours, whispers echoed through the halls. George had accused me of stealing company ideas, claiming I planned to sell them to competitors. The audacity of his fabrication left me speechless. How could he twist reality so grotesquely? My reputation, painstakingly built over years, crumbled into dust in mere moments. When Amanda heard about the scandal, her reaction was swift and merciless. She didn't even give me a chance to explain. That evening, as I stumbled home, defeated and hollow, I found an envelope on the dining table. Divorce papers. Her handwriting scrawled across the top, cold and unyielding. "How could you?" She wrote in the margin, each word a dagger piercing my soul. I wanted to scream, to tell her the truth, that I was innocent, that George had orchestrated this nightmare, but the words caught in my throat. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, powerless to change anything. Amanda didn't call or text after that. She simply disappeared from my world, leaving behind only silence and despair. The fallout didn't stop there. Once news of the alleged theft reached my friends and colleagues, they distanced themselves as if I carried a contagious disease. Calls went unanswered, messages unread. Even those who once called me a friend turned their backs without hesitation. One former coworker sent me a curt email saying, "I always knew something was off about you." Those words stung more than any insult because they came from someone I trusted. It seemed everyone believed George's lies, or at least pretended to, because confronting him would require courage no one possessed. Financial ruin followed swiftly. With no job prospects and mounting legal fees to clear my name, I lost everything: my house, my car, my savings. The bank repossessed what little I had left, reducing me to living out of a cramped studio apartment. Nights were the hardest. Alone in the dark, surrounded by empty walls, I replayed every mistake in my head. The moment I introduced Amanda to George, the countless times I stayed silent while he stole my ideas, the naive belief that hard work alone would be enough. Each memory felt like salt rubbed into an open wound. Friends I thought would stand by me vanished completely, their absence a stark reminder of how fragile human connections can be. And then there was George, thriving more than ever. His promotion to lead the project cemented his status as untouchable, while I became a cautionary tale whispered among employees. Every laugh I overheard outside my window felt like mockery. Every glance from strangers carried judgment. I was drowning in a sea of shame and regret, unable to find solid ground. For the first time in my life, I understood what true despair felt like, a crushing weight pressing down on me until breathing itself felt like a chore. Looking back, I realize how naive I was, how blind trust in the wrong person can unravel an entire life. It wasn't just about introducing Amanda to George. It was about what that introduction represented: misplaced faith. I thought George was a colleague, a partner, someone who shared my vision and values. Instead, he turned out to be a manipulative predator, a man who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone for his own success. The moment I brought Amanda into the office, I unknowingly handed him ammunition, a way to infiltrate not only my professional world, but also my personal one. And he used it ruthlessly, tearing apart everything I held dear. My marriage crumbled, my career vanished, and my sense of self-worth evaporated like smoke in the wind. The hardest lesson came when I understood the true cost of my mistakes. Trusting George wasn't just careless, it was catastrophic. He didn't merely take credit for my work or sabotage my reputation. He destroyed my relationships, alienated me from friends, and left me with nothing but regret. Every decision I made seemed smaller at the time, almost insignificant. Letting him present our ideas to investors felt harmless enough. Staying silent when he dismissed my contributions seemed manageable. But those small choices added up, creating a snowball effect that buried me alive. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. The damage was done, irreparable and absolute. What haunts me most is knowing this could have been avoided if only I had seen George for who he truly was. If only I hadn't been so eager to please, so desperate to prove myself. But hindsight is cruel, offering clarity only after the storm has passed. Now, sitting alone in this cramped apartment, surrounded by empty walls and broken dreams, I replay every scene in my head. Each memory feels like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. The day I introduced Amanda to George. The countless hours I spent working while he basked in glory. The moment I signed divorce papers, officially severing the last thread connecting me to happiness. And yet, even now, I can't fully blame George. Not entirely. Because the truth is, I let him do it. I allowed him to walk all over me, to exploit my kindness, to twist my loyalty into weakness. That's perhaps the most painful realization of all. I gave him the power to destroy me. This story isn't just a cautionary tale about toxic workplaces or manipulative bosses. It's a reminder that trust, once broken, leaves scars that never fully heal. It's a warning that the smallest decisions, the ones we dismiss as trivial, can spiral into unimaginable consequences. Introducing Amanda to George wasn't just a mistake. It was the catalyst for a chain reaction that shattered my life beyond recognition.